Nashville Public Radio serves Middle Tennessee in many ways, every day, including through this podcast. You can support it by leaving a review or rating, by telling a friend about it, or by contributing at WPLN.org/give.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's September 10th, 2025. On this day in 2008, the Large Hadron Collider, deep underground near Geneva, Switzerland, fired up and got to work. It's operated by CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and it uses a giant facility to manipulate and learn about some of the smallest units of matter, pushing protons or ions to near the speed of light in a 27-kilometer ring-shaped tunnel of superconducting magnets. And 2 decades before that facility went online, there was talk of creating an even bigger one here in Middle Tennessee. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The Large Hadron Collider is a unique laboratory on an almost unbelievable scale, and it's only natural to think, well, of course there's only one of those in the world. But there was a time when the United States government was quite serious about doing something very similar in our own nation. It was going to be called the Superconducting Supercollider, or SSC. And in the late 80s, the Department of Energy put out a call for proposals. States were invited to pitch their suggestions of where the thing should go. There were 43 submissions, which got whittled down through a couple of rounds of reviews until just 7 on a short list. And one of those sites was in Middle Tennessee, about 30 miles south of Nashville, basically in the Murfreesboro area. If it had been built here, it actually would have run under multiple communities. What the feds had in mind was a racetrack-shaped tunnel 53 miles in circumference, lined with about 10,000 superconducting magnets. The tunnel itself would be about 10 feet in diameter, and they needed to be able to dig out a handful of quite large chambers underground to accommodate mechanical rooms and laboratory space. Above ground, there will be a handful of buildings around the circumference, but most would be clustered together as a science campus. As I'm sure you can imagine, once word of the Midstate's finalist status went public, everyone was talking about it. There was an electricity to the reaction and a mix of intense and varied opinions. Kind of like when we all heard about the Boring Company's current plans to build a tunnel under Nashville, and we will have a little more about that in the newscast portion of today's episode. But today, some people are really excited about the prospect of a new and different way to move from one point to another. And back then, there was a similar enthusiasm for the idea of cutting-edge science happening right here. The SSC had the potential to create new subatomic particles and unlock fresh understanding about the very building blocks of the universe. But the description of what would happen in that tunnel, forcing atomic particles to collide so we could see what happens, sounded an awful lot like the super basic explanations we'd all heard for how nuclear bombs worked. And the 80s were still very much the era of people being legitimately scared of impending nuclear annihilation. I mean, movies about it were in the zeitgeist. Chernobyl had just melted down and created a huge dead zone where people had to abandon their homes. This wasn't a nuclear facility, but it wasn't not related to that tech. And the explanation of it being put out in the public sphere didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to everyone. So I definitely remember hearing a number of people express fear about what would happen if the scientists got a surprise they weren't expecting. Would we become ground zero for the world's next great tragedy? Today, the tunnels proposed for Nashville bring fears of things like sinkholes. But I don't really think there was much concern about that with the SSC. And that's probably because of a really big difference between the two plans. The Boring Company intends to bore about 25 or 30 feet below the ground's surface. If the SSC had been built here, it would have been buried about 405 feet deep. That's a huge difference. Going that far down meant the tunnel could be located entirely in a giant span of solid, unfractured limestone well below the more crumbly topography that is a possibility in those topmost layers, like where the Music City Loop is set to be built. Overall, the selection committee reviewing potential sites for the SSC decided the Midstate option was a very strong candidate. They estimated that building it here and operating it for 25 years would cost just under $11 billion. But ultimately, the Department of Energy opted for one of several Texas sites. In 1987, they picked a spot near Waxahachie, and in 1990, Congress appropriated $200 million for that project. But very quickly, arguments bubbled up over acquiring all the land necessary. And after George H.W. Bush took over the White House from Ronald Reagan on a platform of read my lips, no new taxes, there was a new level of fiscal scrutiny for the plan. In 1993, it was fully abandoned. In just a few minutes, this week's edition of What Where Wednesday. That's coming up after the newscast.
Thematic Static on WNXP is the mixtape we make together, a themed set loosely organized by you, the listener, handpicking songs according to a theme. Airing first Thursdays at 9 a.m. and again Saturdays at 9 a.m., Thematic Static plucks your requests from the socials at WNXP Nashville and by voice memo at 615-320-9100. Thematic Static, the mixtape we make together, supported by United Record Pressing, only on WNXP.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Elon Musk's Boring Company has begun construction for a tunnel running under Nashville. While that construction is underway, the company is simultaneously sampling the city's rock. WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports that's usually done months or years before a project breaks ground.
Tuesday afternoon, the Boring Company was taking a rock sample, known as a soil boring, in a state parking lot on Rosa Parks Boulevard. At the same time, they were digging for a future utility pole. That's not typical. Companies and government agencies usually do soil borings at least a year or multiple years before large construction projects. And they do a lot of soil borings. The Tennessee Department of Transportation recommends them every 200 feet for projects that cut through rock. For the proposed tunnel between downtown and the airport, that equates to 250 soil samples. So far, the company has planned 5. That's a big reason why geologists and tunnel experts are so nervous about this project. Without sufficient rock exploration, the Boring Company will essentially be tunneling blindly underneath Nashville. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
A federal judge has decided to acquit former Tennessee House Speaker Glenn Cassada and his former top aide on 3 counts of public corruption. Earlier this year, a jury found the 2 men guilty of numerous charges, including fraud, bribery, theft, and money laundering, and most of these convictions still stand. But ahead of sentencing hearings, the Tennessean reports Cassada's lawyers asked the judge for a new trial and acquittal. Judge Eli Richardson, who presided over the jury trial in May, agreed the prosecution's evidence was shaky enough to acquit 3 of the 19 counts. The 2 men could still face up to 20 years in prison. They're set to be sentenced later this week. A Columbia man has pled guilty to federal charges of attempting to use a weapon of mass destruction and attempting to destroy an energy facility. According to the Department of Justice, Skylar Philippi planned to use a drone with explosives to damage a substation. Philippi is associated with white supremacist neo-Nazi groups. He told undercover agents he wanted to target, quote, high-tax cities or industrial areas so that Jewish people would lose money. He'll be sentenced in January and faces a maximum penalty of life in prison. A state board has dismissed the last of 5 ethics complaints filed against Shelby County's district attorney. All of the charges were filed by the same person, State Senator Brent Taylor. He's a Republican. DA Steve Mulroy is a Democrat. Mulroy tells the Tennessee Lookout the complaints were baseless political attacks. The Board of Professional Responsibility voted in agreement that there is no merit to the claims. Taylor previously attempted to have the state legislature remove Mulroy from office, but couldn't rally enough votes. You might have thought the saga over Cracker Barrel's rebrand was over. Late last month, the Lebanon-based company agreed to walk back plans for a new logo. The reversal came amid backlash, lower share prices, and a message from President Donald Trump. Now Cracker Barrel says it's also suspending its plans to remodel. The company had planned to dial back some of its old-timey antique store vibe with more streamlined floor plans. Of its 660 locations, the company says it tested the new design in just 4 and is stopping there. Austin Peay State University achieved its highest enrollment numbers ever this year. The university now has over 11,000 students and shows an increase across different demographics and academic programs. Enrollment for the Clarksville-based university rose more than 7% from last year, despite a national decline in college enrollment. 32% of Austin Peay's student body is affiliated with the military. 11 properties across Tennessee are currently being considered for the National Register of Historic Places. The list includes a century-old bridge in East Tennessee, a Chattanooga school built to educate a farming community, and the Cannon County Bank building that was once the only place for people in Auburntown to keep their money. Notably, the Dunlop House in Clarksville is one of the sites proposed for National Register status. Developers currently intend to build a group of large mixed-use buildings around the historic home. Previous plans would have demolished the structure. National Register status does not automatically protect properties from alterations or destruction, but it can open the door to preservation grants or tax credits. Vaccine policy might be hazy on a federal level, but not here in Nashville. Metro Public Health Department is kicking off its annual flu vaccine clinics, and they'll be available throughout the fall. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Music can be therapeutic, so why not have a music event that leans hard into helping people with their mental health? Marquise will tell us more about that.
I'm Marquise Munson, here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Where Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Americana Fest is happening throughout this week at various locations from Grimey's, Skinny Dennis, The Blue Room, and I'm a G-Man Willie. Other live music opportunities begin tonight with Garbage at the Pinnacle. On Saturday, WNXP presents Stereolab at Brooklyn Bowl. Sunday night, Bonnie Light Horseman performs at the Basement East. Monday night, back at the Pinnacle, Turnstile takes the stage. Wrap up this week's listings on Tuesday with Buzzcocks at Cannery Hall's The Mill and Matt Maltese at Marathon Music Works. For more events, head over to WNXP.org/events. This week for What Were Wednesday, we feature Stay Fest happening at the Cobra on Saturday. The one-day multi-genre festival promotes mental health resources in the Middle Tennessee area through music with a goal to help build community, hope, and end the stigma of getting help.
My name is Rebecca Cole. I am the founder of RAC Books Nashville. Stay Fest has kind of been on my mind for probably 3 or 4 years now. I've struggled with mental health since I was a child, and music has always been that sort of safe refuge. And so I knew I wanted to bring the two together. I just knew it wasn't something I could do by myself. It wasn't a one-person thing. So as soon as I met Jacqueline, it kind of all came together in a perfect marriage.
Won't you guide me a little bit further, 'cause I've been lost and getting weaker.
My name is Jacqueline Spencer. I'm the founder of Mental Health Songwriter Nights here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a mental health themed songwriting showcase event series. All the artists that are going to be performing are really passionate about mental health. That was something that I've always been intentional through my mental health songwriter nights about picking artists that are passionate about, and I know Rebecca felt really strongly about that too for this festival. So there's going to be acoustic performers and full band performers, and all of them have a story to share and fantastic music that they're going to be sharing, and the genres are going to be from pop and a little bit of soul to alternative rock, and then it gets a little bit heavier as the night goes on, which is really cool. And when you come out, you can get food from Tower Market Deli. You can connect with all of the artists, listen to everybody, and go check out their artist booths and buy some merch and support your local artists. It's just going to be a really fun experience, lots of art, music, and mental health.
And that's one thing we were really focused on, is we wanted it to be community. We didn't want the artists just to kind of stay off, perform, and leave. It's really everybody hanging out, coming together, talking to one another, and creating that space and creating the awareness of, you know, you're not alone. Nashville's a big town, but here's this community. Here are all these artists. We're going to have 2 stages, an acoustic stage and a full band stage. And we're going to be alternating through the night so nobody misses anyone. We're also going to have 5 to 6 mental health organizations from the Middle Tennessee area there to offer support and resources.
'Cause I feel like I'm ready. I know I can love you.
We are benefiting Mental Health Initiative through a portion of our ticket sales. And Mental Health Initiative is this nonprofit that is really passionate about not only raising awareness for mental health in our community, but also making it more accessible to people who really need that support but maybe can't afford it, which we think is really important. And I think that mental health is just as important as physical health. I am a survivor of a mass mall shooting and a lot of domestic abuse and violence. And if it wasn't for my therapy team, I don't think I would be where I am today. So it's a conversation that I think is necessary. And I think that as people continue to grow and taking their mental health seriously, I think our community is only going to benefit just like as a whole, and we're all going to be able to just be better people and help each other out more. Yeah, this is a great event to like come and talk about mental health, but it's to encourage you to implement this in all other areas of your life. It's only going to make you have a better life and help other people also. And I think that that's just what community is about. We're all here to connect, to grow, and to heal together.
Our hope is that this festival can bring people together to create lasting relationships. We don't want this to be the one and only. We want this to continue. We want this to be something that people look forward to every year, that they can just grow with these people and grow with these artists.
For more information about StayFest and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What We're Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.